Should we have a bit of a laugh? This was my attempt at recreating this beautiful style that I've seen on Opoly. Now, as you can tell, my version looks nothing like the original, not just because of the fabric, but also because it is super ill-fitting. It doesn't sit right, it's tight where it shouldn't be tight and loose where it shouldn't be loose. Yet the fabric is still great and I still want to make something nice out of it. I've got a few leftovers and these pieces that are currently hanging on for dear life on my body. So in this video, I want to show you how you can save a failed DIY project. Step number one is to simply cut out all of the existing seams, not just because I'm a little bit lazy and I just don't want to be seam ripping all of this, but also because the fabric quite easily gets very torn and frazzled at the end, and most of the time we can't really salvage those edges anyway, especially not with a soft fluffy sort of fabric like this one. If you do have a linen, then that's slightly different. But with this sort of fabric, the best thing to do is just take the scissors to it and cut it apart completely. And then we're going to look at how much fabric we've got left to deal with. So here are all the fabric pieces that I'm now left with. This is the biggest piece because that is the one that I didn't touch last time. So I'm going to trace some long sleeves onto this biggest piece because they take the most fabric, and then try and fit a style around the other bits that will go along with the rest. So I've cut my sleeves and I managed to cut them in one piece, which I'm very happy about. I do think, however, that I'm going to go down the route of the exposed seam sort of trend because it's just easier to save fabric that way, because you don't need any hems, you don't need to be extra careful with where you place the seams because every seam is intentional basically. The pattern that I used for the sleeves and that I will continue to use for the rest of the top is the almond bodysuit. I will adjust it just to save some fabric and to make it look slightly different, to make it fit the style that I'm going for. I won't be double layering the collar. I will basically just have one piece with the overlock hem showing here and around the neck, and then this overlaying piece, because I'm struggling for fabric, I'm not actually going to overlay it in my top. I'm basically going to fold it along the middle like so, and then basically create a seam down here straight the middle from the turtleneck down, and I'll also reduce this curve here so that it's a bit more spiky. And then with the rest of the top, I'm probably gonna split it in half as well and basically have this continuous hem going down the middle. For the back piece, it's going to be exactly the same. I'm going to have a seam down the middle just because I'll be struggling to cut it out in one piece. If you are trying to salvage fabric from a failed project, that's unfortunately the reality of it, because it's already cut into so many bits. We now have to reduce the sizes of the patterns even more so that it actually works as a new top. For the thread, I went with this orangey peachy color. I asked my followers on Instagram what I should do, white or this peach. I personally wanted to do peach, and I was very happy that most of the people agreed with me. And I love how these two colors look together. The top is now finished, and I have decided to not attach the turtleneck just because I feel like it takes it from cool and nice top to spacesuit. I don't know why, but it looks really alien and funky if I attach the turtleneck to it. So instead I've just overlocked the neckline and this top is now done. So now let me show you the final before and after. I have a lot of scraps left over, and I'm now wondering if I should take some other scraps from another failed project. There is a couple of those actually in my stash, and make an even patchier patchwork top. And I think I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to cut some rectangles and squares out of the leftovers that I've got, combine it with some squares and leftovers I've got from another top and failed project, and then see what I do out of that fabric, which I then obviously kind of like patch together to be one bigger piece of fabric, if that makes sense. So the second failed project is this rib knit dress that I was trying to turn into one of those tops that has got the bra incorporated in the top. I failed horribly. It did not work out at all. So I took it apart and now I'm left with these little scraps here. So now I'm gonna take them apart even further, cut them into rectangles and squares, combine them with the rectangles and squares I've got from my previous project, and basically create a new sheet of fabric by jigsawing them all back together, and then trace my new design on top of that fabric. I think I've got enough fabric to be creating a t-shirt, especially because the fabric is super stretchy. So what I will do is I'm gonna take this t-shirt here that I really like the fit of and trace it onto my pieces of fabric. I will probably make it a bit smaller than it actually is, just because this is super stretchy fabric and the t-shirt isn't so stretchy, and also I don't have enough of this fabric to be tracing this entire t-shirt. But it should all work out and be quite a nice tight-fitting t-shirt after I've traced all of these pieces onto my new fabric. So after tracing my reference t-shirt onto my fabric, I basically just cut out these patterns and then assembled them to become this t-shirt that is very patchy. But I think it's really nice, it looks very cute and it's very flattering on. So let me show you what that looks like. The final DIY that I would like to try and save is a blanket that I tried to turn into a shacket. Now, it's an absolute car crash of a shacket. I did so many mistakes and the fabric is just absolutely horrible to deal with because the fluff is getting everywhere. It's very slippery. I think I might have ruined my serger a little bit trying to push it through, and I was panicky. There was a lot going on that day and it just wouldn't work out. So I was that frustrated that I ended up putting it into my recycle bin for all of my fabric scraps. But then I felt very guilty because it is such a waste, because the fabric is really nice and soft. I do really love the touch and feel of it. I just got really frustrated, so I kind of like binned it. But then I felt very guilty and I felt like, no, I've got to at least do something with this. And I thought it's got to be easy because I won't be dealing with this fabric for long and I don't want it to be difficult. So I thought I either turn it into a bucket hat or a little baguette bag. And I asked my Instagram followers which of the two they'd prefer to see, and they voted for the bucket hat, which I'm very pleased about because that was my favorite as well. So this we are going to turn into a fluffy bucket hat. I've got a PDF pattern for that, which I'm going to be tracing onto this fabric twice because I want the lining to be the same fabric as well. I might put some interfacing in between the layers as well, just so that it's a little more stable. And fingers crossed that is going to be quite quick and I won't be coughing pink fluff for the rest of the day. It's not going very well, as you can tell. I honestly start to think that this fabric may be cursed. Everything that I'm trying to do with this fabric is just going horribly wrong. This bucket hat is looking absolutely ridiculous. I think we can all agree on that. I think it might be a little too structured and that the interfacing might be too strong, and that's why it's looking a bit daft. So I'll be cutting out the interfacing and ripping it out as much as I can from at least the brim. So the only way was up, and I do think we have improved it. But I do think it could be cute. But it is actually a bit too flimsy now, of course, because there's no interfacing in it anymore. I have got some lighter weight interfacing, which I'll probably put in here and see if we can save this saving of a failed DIY. So the bucket head is done. It actually came out pretty cute. I'm glad I gave this failed DIY another chance, and I'm also glad that I tried to save the bucket head when I thought it was going to look absolutely horrendous. It is super cute and it's so warm and cozy. It's super windy and cold where I live, so I'm gonna be getting a lot of use out of this. So let me show you how it turned out.